We are here with a full spectrum experience, exploring the entirety of existence as broadly and deeply as possible through the power of conversation and the art of storytelling. This is our first episode, so welcome to our maiden voyage as we explore the unknown. We venture into the beyond across all subjects.
Hi everybody, that's Jaime Delgado. This is Andy Velasquez.
Luis Estrada.
We have Chris in the corner.
We're all here on our first episode. Thanks for joining us.
Exactly. We're going to discuss a little bit the controversy that we saw last night. If you guys were paying attention to the UFC, we saw John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson. In the main event, we had a little bit of controversy because the main fighter who actually won the fight got caught with steroids. And somehow he was able to still fight though. It's like the first time I've ever noticed that, the first time I've ever seen something like that happen. Where they actually moved an entire venue from Vegas a week out from the fight over to Los Angeles to actually make the event possible.
And it was all moved to kind of favor him.
It was moved to keep the fight, which is crazy, you know? Like, how is that even possible? How is it that California sanctioned the fight?
Right.
They have the same kind of athletic commission there. It's kind of crazy, you know?
That's...
It makes you wonder how that's some actual controversy right there.
Right.
You gotta keep people honest, especially when you're California State Commission. I believe that's something that the public pays for. That's our tax money at hand. And somehow that's still being allowed. That's pretty crazy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. Wait, money's going to what?
To regulating sporting events. Your money is going to that.
Hey, they didn't tell me this.
I don't want to pay for that.
Well, especially if they're not even doing their job. True. It's a brutal sport.
It's a very brutal sport.
Yeah. So those things, I guess it wouldn't matter, right? If you're in that octagon with somebody who's all performance enhanced, that would make a difference.
I think the craziest part about it is the way that you see the UFC kind of trying to flip it already. The metabolite found in the system is considered a long-term metabolite. It could be in the system for anywhere up to 7 years, which is pretty crazy. Because everything else I was reading about that metabolite is it's out of your system within 9 months.
9 months to 7 years?
So if it's actually only detectable for 9 months, and these guys are saying it's going to be in your system for 7 years, that's quite the story that's being told.
It's a big disparity.
Right.
That's interesting. I think like there was going to be a big loss of money if it was going to be originally at the same venue.
In Vegas, yeah.
Yeah, it was just going to be to actually cancel it. So it was actually, let's find where can we take this. That's what it kind of seems like it, you know?
Yeah, I wonder what kind of loss you were seeing if you didn't have that event happen in Vegas.
Or if you didn't have the event happen.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably the more important point is because if you need the event to still happen.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing if we're paying to have something regulated. Is it not being regulated because it's not being well funded enough, or is it just more valuable to the regulators to not worry about regulating?
That's a good point, right?
To actively not regulate.
That's very good. Well, it's kind of like the Canelo fight, the boxing.
The controversy there?
You could even make a stretch and even say that the weird judging in the Charlo fight could be directly related to the weird judging around Canelo fights.
I mean, how does boxing stop a fight and not, like what was that, like 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, something like that for the Canelo? I mean, and it was the same thing. It was pretty much steroids. How does one? I mean, UFC was like $4 billion.
That's what they sold for. Was $4 billion.
Was it 4? Yeah.
It's a $4 billion company.
$4 billion.
That was their last purchase point.
I mean,
you gotta protect your investment.
I mean, whoever bought it obviously has got people connected to a point where it was a lot more connected than boxing by the looks of it.
True, you're right. That's a good point.
Because you don't
because the boxing event did get canceled.
Yeah, it got canceled.
Yeah.
I mean, how many millions were lost?
Even if they, it's funny because like you look back at the beginning of this whole thing with John Jones. He first got busted with steroids. I think it was the end of 2017 sometime. Anyways, yeah, trace amount of this metabolite that's still supposedly in the system. And they were blaming it on not so much that he did steroid, kind of like Canelo. I did cocaine, and the cocaine was tainted with
steroids,
with creatine, because that's what they used to cut the cocaine. And the creatine had some trace amounts of steroids.
That was an excuse.
Like, it's a crazy story, to begin with. I'm like, this is so convoluted to begin with. This is crazy.
That's even worse.
The cocaine.
It wasn't even the coke though. It was the creatine. The creatine was tainted with. It wasn't that I was taking that creatine. It's that I was doing coke.
That's funny. No, that's.
And then Canelo was trying to blame it on, I eat tacos in Mexico and
they got the meat.
The meat. It's tainted meat.
Which is, I mean,
I guess it could happen. It's not fully unbelievable. But
True.
Tacos versus Coke, you know.
These are just stereotypical. They're just feeding into these stereotypes. Oh, I was doing Coke and the Coke was tainted. I was eating tacos and the tacos were tainted. I was some fried chicken and the fried chicken
Racially
was
have
tainted.
watermelon. that's some racist shit. No, I mean you gotta kind of see where.
It's
How
always
much is boxing? I mean, that's another thing you can actually touch on. How much is like boxing worth compared to UFC? I mean, because ultimately, it always ends up being.
It must be worth something if one of the main attractions of a boxing event, namely Mayweather, was able to generate $200 million from an event. You know what I'm saying? So there has to be money there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like, I'm not just going to invest $200 million on you if I'm not going to see that kind of return back.
Oh yeah. So it's got to be, but that's then you start thinking about it. All right, well, but how then? How that?
Who's involved?
Who's involved?
You know what? This is a conspiracy.
This is a
And
conspiracy.
it goes all the way up to the top. Just a thing we deal with here on the Full Spectrum Experience.
Oh yeah.
From liberty and freedom to mind control and conspiracy.
Well, I mean, actually, it's actually a pretty good subject because it talks about controversy,
Mm-hmm.
but it also talks about culture because just like touching bases on who was right, who was wrong. Culturally, one was eating tacos and then the other one was doing coke. I mean, I think that's kind of and then also like the community. I mean, that's a good basis that Andy's talking about. That commission of boxing is with public money. So that is
We help pay for this.
Wait a minute. That itself is that's interesting.
We connect the dots here.
Yeah,
We connect the dots. And,
full spectrum.
right? The stories won't get past us. We'll get to the bottom of this. We'll call them out. And you know what? We think you're full of shit. That's what we think.
So that's a good subject. And I mean, I guess being our first one, kind of talk about it more. I mean, one of the cool things about doing the podcast, is that everybody kind of brings in their strengths.
Exactly. We'll be able to talk about things that we want to talk about, things that we find interesting, things that are going on that are relevant in the community.
Yeah.
Media as well as what's going on right now.
Right.
We wanted to kind of dissect it, as a group, with everybody's different views and opinions and experience. What's the actual result, or what is he doing to?
So for example, they're bringing up this fact that there's a long-term metabolite. So let's find out what is the long-term metabolite. Does that really exist when it comes to a steroid like the one that John Jones is being assumed to have used? Or
Allegedly.
alleged right now until.
Allegedly.
Although apparently it was confirmed, and that's still alleged.
But the coke is
Coke was confirmed.
coke is confirmed.
That has been confirmed.
But not steroids though.
That is independently corroborated.
He said, I did coke, not steroids, damn it.
I want my name cleared. I won't stand for this.
It's a hell of
Drag
a...
me through the mud.
So definitely no, it's...
Right.
So I guess being our first one, I guess be kind of good to kind of introduce ourselves and see what we bring to the table.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'll start off. My name is Luis. I guess I have over 2 years of experience doing online sales as well as just sales in general, social media sales, and I've always liked sales. So I like to bring to the table, bring that kind of that entrepreneurship mentality, as well as that salesman, drive. You gotta have that drive to get something and turn it into a profit. So that's what I bring to the table. So
Yeah.
pass it on over to Jaime.
I'm Jaime Delgado, aka Jimmy Slim.
No, there you go.
Luis is the one actually got me started up about entrepreneurship, and it kind of led into me helping to start and form the podcast. It kind of showed all the all the new possibilities out there with the e-commerce and all the new opportunities that exist on the internet with podcasting in general and all kinds of different media forms and projects. So one of the things that I like to, that I think I bring to the table is helping to organize all the information. One of the reasons why I want to do a podcast is because I was inspired by all the quality information I received from different media outlets, whether it be like the radio programs, podcasts, watching lectures by people on YouTube, watching documentaries. There's lots of quality information out there, but you do have to like sift through a lot of kind of nonsense or stuff that's not really useful or valuable in any kind of way. So one reason why I want to do the podcast is to help inform people on these different topics and subjects, because I hear a lot of people feel like you hear people comment on things and they'll talk about things in like in a helpless kind of way, like there's nothing they can do about it. When in fact there's actually a lot of stuff that they can do about things. It's difficult times right now. A lot of crazy stuff's going on. But there's still things that you have control over, and that's one thing that I hope to bring to the podcast is like useful and quality information. That's one thing I'm about is like health and wellness, taking care of your health, and the internet was very useful in helping me learn about how to improve the quality of my life. And so I hope to use the podcast to help other people do that.
Nice.
And like Andy said here, who I'll pass it off to in a second here, he said something to me that resonated with me, and that was, you can't fix all the problems of the world. There's lots of stuff going on, and lots of big problems out there. But when he said to tend to the garden that you can touch, that resonated with me, because there are things that you can do, with yourself, your friends, your family, your community, coworkers, and the world around you, like in your spheres of influence. There are things that you can do to help people, or to make changes, to even if they're small changes, to slowly, little by little, which is how I did it, inch by inch, incremental changes that help to overall improve like the overall quality of my life, which is what I'm about now to share with people. So with that, I'll pass it over to Andy.
I agree with everything that Jaime said. I think that's you can even start really small with the same kind of thing. You could even just being positive around other people in your community, I think, could be a catalyst for change. I'll pass it over to Chris right now.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm Chris. I came for the coffee and the cookies, which I think now are just a ruse. But I think this is a good place for us to get a lot of topics tend to get just short-sighted or made into really they get oversimplified, and I think this is a good place to dig into a little deeper on things instead of just like the little bit of the media tends to touch. We can kind of dig a little deeper into topics that matter to us, things that catch our attention no matter what they are, And
I agree with that.
I think most importantly, this is a good spot to do that.
Yeah. And for me, the best thing is like I get to hang out with you guys. This is like that. This is like awesome, Like
Yeah. I agree.
It's that's the community part, Like we're kind of like strengthening our community bonds,
I would just talking about that. I mean, kind of touching bases on where you kind of hanging out. Yesterday it was like kind of like one of those things that kind of like do some research, kind of like looking up, like different things. I saw a quote on the internet that said if you're with your friends, if your circle of friends, if you're not talking about progress, growth, and positive attitude, it's like you need a new circle of friends.
Right?
Yeah. So it really, like you said, it's something that really resonates. That one of those things that kind of like during the day, there are different things, like quotes or comments or something that you're like, you hear it, you're like, yeah,
I understand that.
I understand that
because I experienced it.
Because I understand it completely. So now, even before, kind of being, I guess everybody that's kind of hearing or seeing right now, does probably know, been friends, since high school, so it's been more than, 15 plus years that all of us have known each other. But really, like, we've had, like each time we hang out, it's been to a point where, we have grown, or we do, talk about progress and not just about kind of shooting the shit.
Yeah.
But now with this podcast, I feel like now it's more of a growth, more of a kind of like positive,
accelerated growth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually getting to a point where it's actually more a clear point that we do come together. It's hanging out, but it's like for an objective. It's like, okay, now we're gonna work on this part of the podcast, artwork or what have you. It's been a couple. Everybody hasn't seen or everybody is kind of listening. This right now, you kind of hear it, but to actually get to this point, it took 3, 4. It was actually several nights of talking about it, planning it, so
Organizing.
organizing.
Those are important things, which will be, kind of going over at the beginning of this podcast. Is like we're kind of still figuring out the format, like how we're gonna, present different information. And one thing that I remember you said yesterday was we were coming up with ideas for different subtitles and taglines and stuff.
Yeah.
I like when you said a catalyst for creativity.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing that this started for me was it started it sparked that the creativity in me, and that's one thing I like. That's why I like we're on this on the podcast, because it kind of helps me explore that, which it kind of is. It's a podcast, but it's also like a art media project. Also,
Yeah.
it's all things. It's the full spectrum.
It's full spectrum.
We're gonna be in all kinds of different stuff.
I think one of the main objectives for the podcast for me was the fact that this is going to hold us accountable to actually trying to influence our own growth and influence the growth around us.
Hold us accountable, and then to also document it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To show the growth, exactly. To show the beginning and then show how we actually progress through it. I think that's going to be pretty interesting to see.
Yeah. Because that's an important part, seeing how far you've gone.
Yeah, personally going back and seeing, where your ideas in the beginning or when it started to how it progressed and how things are moving along. Yeah, growth is
right. Remember that first recording with all of us? We were just playing video games.
That was the
like, where's this gonna go?
yeah.
we're just sitting here playing video games.
It was
but
fun.
slowly, that's one of the cool things about this process.
Yeah.
I learned a new word recently. I think I'm saying it right. Apotheosis. The process of willing away, okay. It's kind of taking out what's not necessary, or you have to shape and form yourself, kind of
right.
You're kind of okay, let me take out that's not necessary.
Scope.
Yeah, and focus a little bit more in this area, that's what I like about the documenting part, is seeing that, okay, I'm noticing that, okay, I'm kind of getting more in tune with producing content,
right.
I see myself,
doing it more.
Doing this more and more. It's getting easier and easier.
Yeah, right now, when we're listening to it, obviously it's an audio, but we're really trying to go more into video, as well as YouTube videos and have our YouTube channel,
Yeah, and also, we forgot to mention, we'll all have links to our own websites, because we'll all be doing, our own things on our own also. Yeah. We have the group project, which is the full spectrum experience, but we all do things individually. Luis has his e-commerce. I'll have my own, website dedicated to health and wellness and things of that nature, and then whatever else, other things that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing, is that when we go off on our own, we get to explore whatever we want, on our own. Andy has his, we'll have his.
Exactly. I have my own little idea. It's going to be kind of based on the same thing. It's going to be based on health and wellness, but it's going to be my process through it, my thoughts on it, my ideas on it. I think that's going to be the interesting part to see the areas that we all decide to touch,
Yeah, the areas that we have in common and the areas that we have that are unique to us.
Exactly.
Unique to each of us.
Yeah, I guess having our own goals, having the team as a support, really helps you grow, and build up on those ideas that you have individually. But as a group, you can also count with them to actually help them give you input on what you're doing and actually kind of get a better result for whatever you're trying to do.
Right. Yeah. Luis is one who actually got me started on masterminding. Yeah. That's an important process to starting whatever it is that you're trying to do. Coming together and forming your goal and seeing how how you can work towards it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's looking back and see how we all we all contributed to where it is now.
Yeah.
The first episode.
Yeah.
This is cool, man. I really like this.
I think that was interesting first episode. It's gonna be interesting if we ever decide to release that, or how we edit it and we actually release it, because I think it was so wild, it's so crazy to actually think back to that very first one. Everybody was kind of talking over each other. We were all messing around and kind of talking shit to each other. It was pretty interesting.
Right.
The one we're playing video games.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're doing a tournament, a fighting tournament.
Right. Hey, you might catch clips of that, in the future.
Oh yeah.
You
It'll
know?
be a throwback classic.
Yeah. Right.
Because that is
The early
that's
days.
a striving industry. Also, you know, it'd be interesting to actually point some light into it.
That's one of the things, yeah, that I'll be covering.
It's pretty crazy because like now
eventually.
you're actually starting to see video games on like even on ESPN. We were just
Exactly.
talking about UFC as that being an actual sport. Like
Yeah.
these people are actually treating video games as actual sport, and you're actually seeing it now as,
Right.
as competitors against each other trying to play
Yeah.
whatever format's out there.
There's
you
lots
know?
of money out there in the video game.
That's just an idea, you know. I mean, that just
Yeah.
grew and just.
The world's
So-
changing in all kinds of different
Oh,
crazy
yeah.
ways.
So that's why we need to have a full
Yeah.
spectrum.
Right? To help navigate all these, you know, all this chaos.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if that world is going to be influenced by gambling the way every other sport is influenced by gambling.
Oh,
It like
It already is, you think?
It already is, and I guess I can like talk like a little bit about like the backstory on some of that for fighting games, because like some of the fighting games start up in like the arcades,
Yeah.
and so they were like in a little more rough areas, where that became a part of like tournaments, like you know, like the gambling part of it, like the side betting, you know, like the money matches, you know, that became a big part of it, you know. And even now you'll hear like, you know, during the tournaments you'll hear people like, you know, placing bets on different things, you know. So yeah, it's still
I
it's
think
still, you
I
know.
think that gambling is always going to be,
Yeah.
you know, involved in some way. You know,
Mhm.
like anything that's competitive. You know, where there's
Yeah.
like no certain outcome for it. There's always going to be like, you know, like
Mhm.
hey,
There's
and
an
then collusion and all that stuff, you know, like those are interesting topics.
There was an interesting, what was it? It was like it wasn't a documentary, but it was almost like a news scene on a Vice show,
Mhm.
and it was talking about that. It was talking about the amount of gambling involved in even amateur sports, and even now that dictates
It
the
affects,
outcomes
yeah.
of amateur sports. You know,
that's crazy.
like gambling has gone to the point where like it'll affect just about anything out there that they could gamble on. You know.
Right. Another interesting topic too is Michael Francesi. He's like one of the only mob bosses to actually like leave, you know, the mob and like live.
Oh yeah.
But he goes around giving talks, and one of the talks I remember hearing him give was on how they get
He gives talk stuff.
Yeah, he actually gave one in Haifa like a few years ago.
What?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mob night. It does public.
Yeah, yeah. He talks about like, yeah, you know, like the life and what it was and like what he did in it, you know, like.
Damn.
And he talked about sports betting and how they get, you know, like the college basketball players, you know, how they get them in, you know, like the whole process of how they do it. And once they're in, you know, you can't leave, you know, like you have to keep doing this, you know, like if you're telling us, like that's fine, you know, like we're known for that, you know. Are you? Don't you want to go places? Don't you want to be somebody?
It's funny how you can influence these kids who are considered amateurs, but yet
They're making professional money.
though at least the universities around them when they charge
Yeah.
for those tickets, you know,
Yeah.
they're making high dollars.
Oh yeah.
You know? It's pretty crazy. Like not even on that, they're also making on all the TV networks, you know, like all the TV deals get
Mhm.
some X amount of revenue.
Right.
And these kids see none of it, but yet they can be influenced easily by a better, you know.
Yeah.
Weakness in there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We cover all aspects of the game here,
Hey, controversy.
inside and out.
Yeah, there's a
Right.
lot of controversy
That's
in this,
angles.
in this community.
Yes. Yeah.
The culture to controversy.
Yeah.
Community that's considered sports, athletics, even amateur athletics, you know.
Right.
It was interesting to see. I'm not sure if you guys were paying attention to that on the college level or whatever, where the college players were actually trying to unionize, and you were hearing a bunch of talk against that. You know, like here are these kids trying to actually unionize, and here's a bunch of adults trying to stop them from
Unionizing.
exactly.
Huh. That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Right. Huh.
Because they were like, you guys are making X amount of dollars on us as playing football or whatever, and we don't see any of it at all whatsoever. Now, the one thing that everybody says is usually college kids, like college football players, like for example, because that's the one I saw the most on. Those kids can't even pick the classes they want to take. They're actually forced into certain classes, so they can't even like they get a free grant to go to school,
Right.
and that's supposed to be their tuition. And that's the reason why. You know,
That's
They-
like the yeah.
that's the reason they're there. They get to play for free or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't actually get a choice actually on what they want to be educated in. They actually have to do classes the way the
They have a
the
schedule
way,
set for them.
yeah, the way the team wants them to play, basically. The way the team wants them to do.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just pretty crazy.
So they're coming out there with a major. I mean,
They're coming out with
degree that they didn't know.
they're coming out with a degree in an area that they probably don't want a degree in.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of these kids are claiming. A lot of people are claiming like, hey, they weren't allowing me to take these classes. I had to be at team practices at these times.
Oh, so I see.
Damn, so the whole
It's all addicted around. Hey, you got to make us money.
You gotta make us money. Exactly.
You can't be late for your job.
That class.
Yeah.
Can't be thinking about your future. What's that all about?
We got some money to make.
Yeah,
Let's go.
I'm thinking about my future.
And that's crazy how the head coaches are like the highest paid.
True, which is crazy, huh?
Yeah, like out of everyone on the college campus, it's that.
It's always the coach.
That's crazy.
Oh, that right
That
there
shows
is-
you.
Yeah.
It's like evidence. Here's clear cut evidence right here. See, we knew it.
Evidence to what? I don't know, but at the same time, it is evidence.
Here it is. It's evidence. You don't know what happened yet, but we got some evidence.
There's evidence. All right.
Right, all the different aspects of academia.
Oh yeah, that is
Even that, man.
Even that education
Right?
system is just.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have Arnold on here and he can tell us all the stories of what goes on in the upper echelons of academia.
Oh yeah.
All
You
the,
want to
all
see
the
an example?
controversy.
You want to give us an example of what controversy you think exists in academia?
Well, like falsifying data. That's like a big one.
Does that really happen a lot? You think?
Yeah.
Data on what though?
Okay, for example, I'll have to like pull this one up. You guys have to keep me accountable on this one. 'Cause there's actual like evidence of this one. There's like a recording that someone got at the CDC of like the head of the CDC. He was like secretly recording him, talking about how they had falsified data on one of the vaccines and how it disproportionately affected African American boys at like a certain age. They'd be more likely to develop certain things, but they had they played with the data and how like they played with it. They played with the science, whatever.
Yeah.
And so he was actually caught on audio, talking about how they falsify data and destroy documents, so that they wouldn't be able to they wouldn't be able to find out about it. So yeah, it always reminds me. It's like I'll often reference like movies and stuff like that to like illustrate the point. But like in The Fugitive, that's kind of essentially what The Fugitive was about.
Yeah.
It was actually the whole point of the movie was that they were trying to sell a drug that he would have been. Harrison Ford would have had like the evidence that showed that drug wasn't effective or whatever. So to get rid of him, so that they could sell that drug,
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the future. It was like a while back. I
Yeah.
remember like kind of seeing it, but then like
I remember watching it like years later and be like, oh, I don't specifically remember that part. I just remember he was running away from the police and that was cool.
that was cool.
I only saw the Leslie Nielsen wrongfully accused. That's the only one I saw.
I don't think I ever saw The Fugitive.
No, Harrison Ford and
Yeah, I
Tommy
don't
Lee
think
Jones.
I've ever seen that movie.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. It wasn't me. It was the one-armed man.
It was the one.
Oh, spoiler alert! Oh, yeah, sorry for the spoiler.
It's too late.
those
It's
who
too
took-
late. This
Way to go.
For those of you who waited 20 years to see The Fugitive, I'm sorry.
We gotta cut.
Damn
this.
it.
We gotta cut.
Shit, dude, I'm sorry.
Time to cut.
It just came out like 20 years ago.
So I haven't seen it though. I still haven't
Oh,
seen it.
okay,
You
okay,
ruined it
okay,
for me.
my bad.
I haven't seen it.
Half of this room hasn't seen it.
A quarter of this room hasn't
That's
seen
a,
it.
that's
Oh,
a,
Chris, you said you hadn't seen it, right?
I haven't seen it.
Oh,
I've seen
you're
it.
right. It is half. You're right. My
I'm
bad.
not gonna see it. But you did ruin it.
I'm not gonna see it.
He's boycotting the movie already.
yeah, so like,
No.
it's everywhere, man. It's like what you see at school, at the workplace, at home, happens everywhere. It doesn't matter where you look. It's gonna be all the same things gonna be happening.
What kind of reminds me?
Someone's lying about something.
I can't remember. Like it was like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Heard that the church, it was like a Catholic church too, out in L.A. Like a big like community of like nuns. That like two like main ones were found like they were like, embezzling money because they were going to the casino.
We knew it.
Morongo, here we go. No wonder they had a whole bunch of player cards. You know, the rosary was a player's cards.
Oh,
Gambling even influences the church, man. Like
that's crazy, yeah.
Not only does it influence sports, it influences the church.
It goes high. Gambling, it's embedded. It's embedded. It's not going nowhere.
So were they gambling like the church's money, or?
Well, yeah. That's what they got caught up, you know. Because I guess
money. It was like $500,000.
Really?
Girl, you heard about it?
Yeah, I saw that.
I know.
They've been doing it for like 20 years. It was like $500,000.
Like over there.
There's a shitload of money.
Yeah, and what they do, they go gamble. You know, they're like, oh, grab some money. They're like, hey, let's go party.
There'll be more next week. It's cool. Grab what you need.
Grab what you need.
You'll hold the pound next week.
Look. People just there's a bucket. People just throw money in there. Just grab a handful. Let's go.
I believe that's for the community. That's a community donation, exactly.
We're members of the community.
It goes directly into my pocket. I'm a part of this community.
Yeah, but I heard about that. I was like, what
Right?
the?
Oh, we don't shy away here. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
We'll call you out.
I refuse this to get current.
That's pretty funny. No, I heard about that. I was like, what? They're all gambling.
Nuns on the run.
Nuns on the run. It is funny because at the casino you see people like rub the screen and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they're probably like
The sign of the cross on the screen? Ah.
Come on, big money. Come on, big money. Yes. Yeah, you see people like rub it or they give it good luck. I guess they were doing the whole
Sign of the cross.
You can get the holy water.
Give me the holy water, right?
So let's do this.
Is there any communion wafers?
Give me in the coin slot.
Someone's in the corner. It doesn't work that way, man. It doesn't. It doesn't work that way.
They're all eating them for snacks later. Yeah, coffee. Yeah, no. I heard about
These
that.
are tasty.
Yeah. That type of controversy, you know, it's hey.
Right? It's not all controversy. There's some other stuff out there that's going on. It's not controversial.
True. There is more to the world than just controversy, but there is that.
That's the fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah, it's hilarious to talk about controversy sometimes. Like the narrative that some people are trying to spin or trying to tell, you know, like that shit's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Some people, man, what's crazy to me is some people believe that some of the crazy stories that are out there, you know?
True.
Like, it's not that the crazy story exists, you know? It's that someone believed it, you know? Dang, you ate that whole story,
You
huh?
believed
You
everything.
believed all of it. Why would they lie? Why would they lie to me? They wouldn't do that to me.
Not me. Anybody but me. No. Especially you.
Right? Yeah, looking at you, mainstream news media. We're calling you out. What's up,
Right
bro?
here on the first podcast.
Yeah,
The fake news.
showing you what we're about. Here.
We don't shy away in the full
You and your
spectrum.
bullshit narratives.
I'm on to you.
We're on to you. We know the game. We know the game.
I think that's been the cool part about like hanging out with you is listening to Jimmy Dore because of that, you know, like
Yeah.
you're the one who kind of showed me Jimmy Dore, and Jimmy Dore brings up a bunch of the controversy that because I used to not believe, I used to kind of think Trump was kind of making shit up, you know, when he was saying fake news, but then you start seeing like no, there is real fake news out there.
Yeah.
this guy might be onto something.
Right?
He might be full of bullshit at the same time, but he's onto something with the fake news. Like they
Yeah.
really are feeding you fake news a lot of the time, you know.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
pretty crazy.
Yeah. You can start to see it now, man. They're getting desperate.
Oh, yeah.
But you see, like that's the other thing too. The massive censoring they're all doing, like Google, Facebook, YouTube.
Yeah, by kicking people out, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I've heard that even Patreon is doing that right now.
Yeah, I heard the story about that too.
Yeah, so they're actually, if you guys aren't aware of this is something that's going on where they're actually, if people aren't progressive enough or they don't have a voice that the people like, that these people like they ban you from these services. Like they'll ban you from YouTube, they'll ban you from Facebook, they'll ban you from anything that you're using where you're in contact with your media, with your community in a sense, you know.
Right. The one thing
So
I like about
if they don't agree with their,
With their viewpoint. If they don't agree with your viewpoint, with
Your
what you're
content?
saying, with the
Oh,
content that
really?
you're putting out,
Yeah.
they will cut you down.
the one thing I like about James Corbett from the Corbett Report, you'll hear me like cite his work a lot because he does good documentaries and he's a really good researcher. One of the things he talks about is people forget, and that's one of the things that I'll be talking about and promoting and trying to work with more. as we move forward is like alternative sites for everything. Alternatives to Google, alternatives to Facebook, alternative to YouTube. There's already a lot of them out there that exist that some people they're starting to use, but
they're not mainstream.
Yeah, they're not as mainstream. But the more people like us and other people start using those alternatives, because the thing it'll be it's too easy for them to censor people because everyone's on those platforms.
Yeah.
But if people kind of pull their support off of them a little bit, like little by little, which is what I plan to do. Like I plan to have the podcast posted on not just on the website, but also like on Minds. Like we'll have a Patreon. Like we'll incorporate it as much as we can. Like because there's Steemit and DTube, which is an alternative to YouTube, is a part of like the Steemit like ecosystem, and a lot of these new platforms also incorporate like crypto, like either cryptocurrency or like blockchain technology. So all things are that I'm learning about. That I know a lot of people who are entrepreneurs in those areas. Want to know more about. How to use it. How to play with that stuff.
This is a topic that we will actually dig into. It's not that we'll actually dig into and actually let you guys know what cryptocurrency is, because if you're like me, it sounds like a bunch of jargon. I don't even know what it is. We might actually have to break it down for people that way.
Right. What's blockchain? What's Bitcoin? What's cryptocurrency?
Makes sense of it for
Ethereum. Yeah. All these things, because that's another thing that James Corbett talks about is like how they confuse people with all these different words, like blockchain and crypto and Bitcoin. They're not all interchangeable. They all describe different things and aspects of of it. So.
And the way it's painted right now, the way that you see a lot of the news media like talk about these things, they almost make it seem like all of these things are illegal. Like they're spreading the narrative right now is it's illegal until we have our set up, and that one will be legal. And they'll put it. They're talking about FedCoin. Like the Federal Reserve started, looking into like the blockchain technology and starting up their own, Federal Reserve coin that's linked to the dollar, which goes against what Bitcoin was created for, was to pull, all the stuff away from
it's to like eliminating having to need that, So that's the thing we'll also talk about and get into, like the history of all these things, Bitcoin, Ethereum, because there's, those areas and topics are, at least for me, are interesting.
Maybe even tie it into the Federal Reserve a little bit, and actually talk about the Federal Reserve and the reason why people are trying to go away from it,
Right. Yeah. That's the other thing too. Yeah.
It'll be an interesting topic, like you're starting to see that even from actual states, where states are actually incorporating their own banks now. They're actually trying to. I don't remember what state. I think it was
North Dakota is one of the first states who's had it for like a while now. I think
and they're actually making money now.
Yeah, and they were actually one of the only states who was able to like weather the economic downfall in 2007, 2008.
Okay.
Because they had their own state bank. It wasn't
It wasn't federal.
Yeah.
That's
very
interesting.
Talking about those topics,
Because right now, like, the reason it's an interesting topic and the reason we'll get into it a little bit more is because I didn't know this until actually having to look into it, and that is that the Federal Reserve is privately owned.
Yeah, it's not part of the government.
It's not a part of the government.
Right.
And for the longest time, like you hear the Federal Reserve,
right.
The word federal automatically to me,
right.
You make it seem like it's a part of the government.
Yeah. Some quality info right here, real quick. I'll give you like the quick background story on the Federal Reserve.
Go for it.
There's a book by Edward G. Griffin, I believe is his name, or G. Edward Griffin, The Creature from Jekyll Island, and that book is the story behind how the Federal Reserve was created and the people involved. J.P. Morgan and all his people met secretly on one of his islands called Jekyll Island, and they came up with like the plan to create the Federal Reserve, and even the name, because like Andy said, it is a privately owned bank, but they were able to get a legislation passed through Woodrow Wilson, who they helped get elected. He helped enact the Federal Reserve Act, which took the Treasury's ability to print money and issue money to the Federal Reserve. So they effectively kind of took over the United States money supply and became in charge of it. Mm-hmm. And there's a quote from Mayor Amschel Rothschild, who's connected to J.P. Morgan Chase, which were the part of the European banker family. There was a quote from him saying, "Give me the power to control and issue money, and I care not who makes the laws." I mean, he understood like there was a kind of what the financial system is based off of now. Started from back then. Those guys understanding banking, mm-hmm. and how they use banking to kind of like slowly take over and take power by funding both sides of war, and then profiting, when whoever wins, by being able to collect the debt, because the money system we have now is debt based. We'll go into these topics a little bit more further. That was a quick little, insight onto the subject.
It ties into a lot of different areas,
Yeah.
and that's why it's an interesting topic to talk about, and that's the reason we could dive so deep into it because it branches so.
It touches so many different things.
Exactly. Like one of the big struggles that we're having right now is how much money influences our government right now and how people get elected.
Mm-hmm.
There's that big case that happened that Citizens United allowed corporations to actually buy, in essence, by elected officials.
Right. Their money is considered speech.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the more money you have, the more speech you have.
And that's how they were able to do that.
Yeah.
And
one of the things that connects that, another info tip is one of the big groups that actually has influence over like what we do here, like locally on the local level, wherever you're at, is ALEC, which is the American Legislative Exchange Council, and one of their big funders I think is the Koch brothers, but a lot of the big corporations were funding it for a while until they pulled their support of it. But ALEC goes to all the Chamber of Commerce, and Alex is the one who actually kind of pushes the Chamber of Commerce to operate in a certain way that's helpful to whoever their donors were. So that kind of shows like on the local level how politics are affected by these big corporations. Like this big money from outside is actually having an influence like in your local town, through the Chamber of Commerce. So one of the things if people were to look into, if you wanted to know more about it, you could ask your local officials, have you guys ever accepted money from ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council? And if they have, then that they're influenced at least by these
exactly
interests who have money.
It's funny that you talk about the local level because you see all these scandals at the higher levels, and then you start noticing like, oh shit, the scandals are even at the lower level. Like it is all interconnected. Like here locally, we had this big problem with some of the city council members were actually involved in a scheme where they were paying themselves off with
through contracts.
Through contracts, exactly.
Which companies they owned.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the contracts are actually given out to the companies they own themselves, which is a conflict of interest. But that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
And paying themselves large amounts of money to actually to do these do these jobs.
Yeah. So.
And all that money that they're actually touching, though, all that stuff is the community pot, and they are like the nuns just taking away. This is from my pocket.
Right?
Yeah.
The nuns got back.
We call that the Morongo problem.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So
Nice.
from the street level all the way up to the top, we'll connect it.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll show you what's going on, and we'll like take you on our journey of as we discover all these things for ourselves too, because we like this. What I talk about are things that I like to research and look into. So those are things.
I think that's kind of how that's the main reason for the podcast is the fact that like we were talking about earlier, we all have our own interests, and there's areas that we like to dive in very deep into.
Yeah, exactly.
Specifically, like there's areas that are interesting to me that might not be interesting to the rest of the group, but they might be worthwhile if we talk about it as a group.
Exactly. Yeah.
But even if something is interesting to you, a lot of times, even you talking about it or even you kind of bringing it up, kind of brings the interest. Like, oh, that's something I didn't know about.
Pay attention to. Yeah,
that's something I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Now you talking about that, on the side note, kind of add a little bit of information to it, So, yeah. So I guess one thing we should also tell the listeners that if they have any topics or they want to bring up as well.
Yeah, what you like about the show? I was looking
earlier. The community is really, want them to engage.
Yeah, I was looking earlier when I was messing with the website. There is area we can do comments.
Add a comment section.
Yeah, so
nice.
that will be available soon,
So
or if not, when this podcast is uploaded.
The Full Spectrum Experience.com.
Oh yeah,
all one word.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the
We'll also be setting up a GoFundMe for around $500,000
Yes.
We're gonna repay with those nuns.
Right?
We'll have that.
Hey,
We
we're here.
promise
We're
do
here to
that.
make things right. You know,
Somebody has to pay for their sins, and I guess it has to be us.
It's gonna be called Nuns Are Human.
we're gonna bring justice to this world.
Nun run. Nun run.
$500,000 at a
We're gonna make
time.
it right.
Yeah, $500,000 at a time.
$500,000
We're doing a fun run.
One Indian casino at a time.
We'll see where that goes, and we'll get another one going after that.
Yeah.
The Nun run.
Right. Are you guys happy with this?
I think so.
Happy with this?
This will be the conclusion of it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Luis Estrada.
Jaime
Enjoy.
Delgado.
Andy Velasquez,
And Chris in the corner.
Chris in the motherfucking corner.
Thanks
See you
for
guys.
listening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.